Alright, so as you can see, I already have this wheel done in Spectacular Gray, partially cured, just cured till flow out plus a couple minutes. And we're throwing my custom mix mag blue over top of this color. The mag blue is only going to go in the recesses here that you will see, and that's what we're going to start working on immediately. The first attachment that I use, just a little vacuum attachment, little hose and a little plastic thing. You can get these at Home Depot, Lowe's, any hardware store, normally called like a detail kit near the shop vac section. We're going to use this to remove most of the material or most of the blue powder that we want off of this wheel. The best way to do it is to have a hose that runs up so it's easy to work with. I tend to do this vertically, the way that you see the wheel hanging here, mostly so that any powder that I'm knocking away as I vacuum is just falling down. It's not going into any of the recesses or things of that nature. You want to get as much of the powder away from the recesses as possible, because you don't want to be shoving a bunch of powder into those for the most part. If you do that, what you'll get is uneven areas in the recesses, and these wheels are kind of unique in that in those recesses is pretty textured. These are old sandcast wheels, incredibly old sandcast wheels. So they already have a bit of a texture in them. I try to hide with the powder. But if you're doing this on a more modern wheel where they're not cast the same way, and you shove powder down into those recesses, you're definitely going to see where there's a lot more powder build up. And then as I finish up with the hose here, I end up switching over to a microfiber towel that is a little bit damp. I tend to use brand new microfiber towels to do this, just to not risk wiping anything strange onto the wheel in this process. The microfiber, you can do this with a hose for sure, vacuum all this out. The microfiber, a damp microfiber, just makes this so much faster, so much easier to deal with. You'll see I'll just go through all the windows, try to get everything out as best I can before we're going to end up moving this down into a horizontal position to do the finger wiping technique, which ends up giving you the most of the detail in this job. So once I have the wheel sitting horizontal, my little table that I use for this, I'll wipe it down with a microfiber and then move on to the finger wiping technique. I tend to use a damp finger. I use a microfiber that's damp to keep wiping my finger on. Definitely helps with picking up powder, and then you can just use the towel to wipe it away so you're not constantly having to wipe it on something random. Depending on the type of project that you're working on, like I said before, you want to avoid wiping powder down into a lot of these grooves. In this case, these are so textured that it's not really going to matter too much, but on a lot of the newer stuff, like I stated before, they're a lot cleaner lines, and if you shove powder down into there unevenly, you will actually see that in the curing process. So you just constantly rotate around this. You definitely want to make sure that you're taking your time. One thing that sucks about the finger wiping technique is if you do mess up, you're going to have to spray more powder into that area, which of course is just going to be more powder to wipe away. Moving on, this is the second wheel, obviously. As you can see, I left a ton of powder sitting around the Tom's logo. I did this on purpose. In the spray process, powder tends to not go down into this logo very well, and I'm just using the powder that's around it now to kind of fill in the logo, make sure that it stays nice and defined. And although this is a pretty tedious job, this is only a 14-inch wheel and a pretty basic finger wipe, so this only takes me probably 6 to 7 minutes a piece to do one of these. I have some 24-inch wheels that I just did recently, which there'll be a video on showing a similar technique but a little different color setup, so a little more complicated. Those ones were taking me like 25 minutes a piece to do each one. Obviously it's going to vary based on how much powder you're leaving, how much powder you're having to put in, the areas that you're putting it in, if they're more complex or easier. These ones are all pretty straightforward, obviously. Then just a quick little detail wipe away any extra powder that might still be there, and then get these things ready and get them thrown in the oven for curing. And then this is the final result. This is Spectacular Gray from Prismatic Powders, and then my custom mixed Volk Mag Blue. And hope you enjoy the tutorial.
By now you should have at least blown. It's funny, I'm mad famous for being unknown.